Alrighty, everybody, again, we are back again, and we'll be continuing our series on Tithis with Astrology. So, Namaste, Astrology, and welcome again. And today, yeah, today we'll be doing the Tritiya Tithi. So, over to you, Astrology.
Okay, I'll just quickly share my screen. Okay. So, like Dr. Paiji said, we'll be doing today Tritiya, or the third lunar day. So, as you can imagine, again, the first day was this first impulse, first creative impulse, first the desire of Pratipatiti. On second lunar day, already the desire got a little bit more grounded. We got a little bit more confidence. Like, confidence is really the best keyword for Tritiya Tithi, because these people can really have this confidence about what they really want in life if the Tithi is healthy. While Tritiya is about now securing this. So firstly, we had desire, then we were confident, and we wanted to realize that, right? Because earth element is all about realization. And here we want to secure this now. So that's a very prominent keyword we use Tritiya Tithi. It's actually securing things. It will be also closely associated with the principle of Vishnu, the sustainer, as well. So I will just quickly honor goddess Nityaklimna, the goddess presiding over this lunar day. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Hrim Nityaklimna Deviye Namaha. So Nityaklimna literally means eternally wet goddess. And that is very, very interesting name in itself, because very often Nityaklimna, like her name is translated in so many different ways, really. But one of the ways how people are interpreting that, even whenever we are chanting Shri Suktam, the prayer to Goddess Lakshmi, we very often address her like Ardre, or the moist one, because we say that she's moist with compassion towards her devotees. So also, when it comes to Tritiya Tithi, it's all about this moisture of compassion, about nourishing something, making it go. So people born on Tritiya Tithi, just from this perspective, these are not people who like to start things. They like to preserve and continue things. And in fact, sometimes their power of preservation of something can become so enormously great that they actually create something so powerful that that stands, in this world even after their death. You have people like, for example, Steve Jobs with that placement, right? They created something and it was preserved and nourished for a very long time afterwards. So the hue of Goddess Nityaklimna is red, so she's reddish. Even we will see that the planet here is Mars. And again, whenever we think about Mars, like what is the main thing of Mars, main quality is the power to make effort, actually. Because even Mars himself, he was born actually from drop of sweat, which fallen from Lord Shiva on the ground. And it's the same quality of Goddess Nityaklimna, so she can be eternally wet, moist with compassion, but also is the sweat of effort, of putting into something. Because firstly we had the Pratipatiti, the number one, the self. Here, then we had Vidya Tithi, number two, the relationship, and here we have the preservation of that relationship. And to preserve any relationship, in fact, I think that anybody would agree with that, it requires lots of effort. So especially when we have a family, because this goddess will be very strongly connected to home and family, all those values. And even if we read the scriptures, whatever people are always saying is that Tritiya Tithi is very good to do anything at home, to warm the house, for example, we say in Vastu, or to do anything in the house, to protect the house, to stay with our family, or to calm down, to rest a little bit. So they're always saying these things, that this is a very good day, actually, for doing anything in home related. Probably also because of the ruler of being here, Mars. So the goddess here, she's also holding Pasha and Ankusha in two of her hands. Also Abhaya Mudra, so the mudra of fearlessness. So she's saying, fear not, I'm here. And also she holds a drinking cup. So the drinking cup which she holds in her hands, now again shows this quality of nourishment. So it's different, than holding just a pot of Amrit, like in the hands of Goddess Kameshwari, because here, Goddess Nityaklimna, she's the nourisher. And even if we think, like, if we have family, if we want to nourish this family, You know, we can't nourish it just by being sweet and nice. We actually need to go to work, earn money, put our effort, and this is how we are going to nourish our family. And this is exactly the quality of Goddess Niteklina and this specific lunar day. So she's also dressed in red, which shows, you know, this power and courage that we need to put sometimes into our relationships. So even we see that the color of the moon here is Pusha, which is nourishment, and also strength. Sometimes Pusha is actually also translated as the inner strength. And it's very beautiful that the divine quality here is forgiveness. So the power to actually forgive something. And I personally find it so beautiful because when we are thinking about Tritiya Tithi itself, like who was born on Tritiya Tithi? That was actually Parashuram avatar. He was born on Akshaya Tritiya. So it's a very special thing because the planetary ruler here is Mars, and we all know that Mars can be rectified by Venus. This is why in the wheel of directions, Venus presides over southeast, the direction that we see here, while in the wheel of time, in the Kala chakra, Mars is the ruler there. And it shows that whenever Mars gets kind of out of balance, it's the Venus that is going to help. So Lord Parashuram himself, he was the incarnation of Venus, actually. He represented the energy of Venus itself, and we often tend to think like, you know, Venus we always associate with these sweet, pleasant energies, but Venus can be very violent too. In fact, it really can. And we can see it even when we will be talking soon about the Tithis ruled by Venus, they can be very violent, in fact. So Venus also has this quality because Venus can be either love, which is beautiful, which is all about freedom, or it can be attachment. And this is from where the troubles come, usually from Venus. So for Parashuram Avatar, in his life, we are seeing that he incarnated to purify the entire earth from the Kshatriyas, literally to purify them in blood, right? Because this is what he had done. And it's so interesting because when he actually destroyed all the Kshatriyas, when he purified the earth from them, this is when he realized that violence is not the way. And he actually started to do his tapasya, and he stayed on earth simply to do his tapasya and to support the world with the power of his tapasya, with his meditation, spiritual power, and forgiveness. So that is also, in a way, kind of a very important thing for Tritiya natives, because just because of the fact that the ruler is the Mars here, they can be sometimes a little bit short-tempered too, but short-tempered specifically, you know, again, it's a little bit different thing than with Pratipats. So Pratipats is just impulsive, wants to do things fast, and sometimes don't even think about before talking. With Tritiya, it's differently. They are more about protectiveness and about taking things personally. So this Tithi, I didn't put this information here just not to confuse everybody with too much of things going on at the same time, but this Tithi is also strongly connected with Swadhisthana chakra, so the element of water in our energy body. And Swadhisthana literally means my own private place. So they can be very protective about their family, also about their values, but also very protective about even their ego sometimes. So again, this quality can be seen here. So even though they are great nourishers and there's lots of motherly energy being present with Tritiya Tithi, again, mother in nature, they can be very nourishing for their children, but very dangerous for any sort of enemy. So we always need to keep this duality in mind. And the guna here is ether. And again, what is the ether element, right? Ether element combines everything and brings it all together. This is why in Panchang, what is ruled by ether element is yoga. So the union, bringing things together. So this is why coming together of people is very important for them, and having just harmony in the relationships is very, very important for those natives. And they really like, you know, bringing the family together, the people together. They need a lot of this social stimulation as well, because ether is a very fast element, so they need this sort of stimulation from other people too. And they can be really great if this Tithi is healthy. They can be very good mediators. They can be very good lawyers. People who are just good in bringing people together, literally. And even the goddess Niteklina, it is said that whenever people are experiencing any problems and any problems, let's say of emotional nature within their family, so with their husband, wife, children specifically, that this specific goddess, she helps to bring all together. So even in Tantra Raja, it said anybody experience problems with family, they should pray to this goddess. She will help. And even we can see here the form of Shiva connected to this exact lunar day is Uma Skanda. So it's Shiva associated by Uma and Skanda. And in Mayamatam, there's this beautiful description how they are seated. So there's Shiva, there's Uma, his wife, Parvati, and Skanda in between them. So it shows, you know, that this union between the family, but it shows also like more subtle thing as well, because Skanda is connected with Mars. So it's Skanda, so it's Mars sitting between Uma and between Shiva, and shows that this power of Mars can be either utilized to bring the family together through the power of mutual effort of the people, or it can split people apart too. So that's one thing that is kind of very, very interesting, and very interesting dynamics also being present here. And the stage of consciousness here is deep sleep within waking stage of consciousness. So deep sleep is usually this state of consciousness when we are performing our duties, but usually in a little bit more mechanic way. So we are not aware really what we are doing, we are just doing things mechanically. And I think that every mother can really resonate with that, because very often when you have children, when you have thousands of things to do at the same time, you know, and especially in your own home, like often it ends up that you just do, you know, lots of different things at the same time, literally, right? So this is exactly this stage of consciousness, because this stage of consciousness is very supportive for fulfilling our duties, which Mars is standing for. So because Mars is the soldier, right? Mars is the power of our taking action. So he's not the planet who wants to understand why we are doing something, right? He's the planet who just wants to fulfill the duty and have it fulfilled. And that's all. And when it comes to the nakshatra connection, on the other hand, so the nakshatras which have same guna and same tattva, they're known them because, like according to Agni Purana and Shiva Swarodaya, there are simply no nakshatras connected specifically to ether element. But by the number of hands, we see Rohini nakshatra again. And again, Rohini is this very motherly and nourishing and growing nakshatra. It's the fourth nakshatra also, right? So it's also associated with the values of our home. And even, I believe, I don't remember in which exact Brahmana, but I know that in one of Brahmanas it's written that it's beautifully described, that in the same way, like Kritika Nakshatra is the fire of Yajna, the fire of Homa, the fire of fire sacrifice. Similarly, Rohini Nakshatra is the power to warm the house. And they also actually advise warming of the house also on Rohini Nakshatra, similarly like on Tritiya Tithi. And the vow associated here will be associated with Bharani Nakshatra too. So we can see that first 4 Tithis will have some sort of association with Bharani Nakshatra as well. And this is also kind of logical because these first 4 Tithis will be associated with Rajas as well, and they will be all associated also with waking state of consciousness. So whenever we do something in our waking state of consciousness, and specifically with guna of Rajas, because what is Rajas guna? It's action with expectation, right? But at the same time, Bharani is governed by Yamaraj himself, and Yamaraj is also reminding us that it's not only about just fulfilling our desires, not only about our expectations, but about having healthy self-control over our actions too. So, and also it's very interesting because, again, we will see that these first 4 Tithis are like very strongly connected with this earthly existence, right, on this planet. And Yamaraj himself was actually the first mortal being, right, the first being who actually came on earth, and that's why he became a god of death as well, or the god of mortality is maybe even the better word for him. So that's one thing that is like really, really interesting for me. And again, the yantra here is actually a very simple one. So it's basically just a yoni, right? So again, just a very, very creative and very nourishing energy being present here, like the energy of the mother. So really, goddess Nityaklina is very strongly associated with this motherly energy, with all the things we are kind of private about as well, but at the same time, things towards which we need to put some sort of effort. Because again, it will reflect a little bit the qualities of the moon in the 3rd house. And this will be very strongly associated with taking our effort into nourishing all the things that we actually value. And this is how the moon looks like during Shukla Tritiya. So we see that there's already a little bit more light present there, visible. while on Krishna Tritiya, this is how the moon looks like. So moon is slowly diminishing here. So this is also kind of interesting just to observe how much moon is there and how much light is there on different tithis, because it always shows us something and always reveals us something as well. So I think that's all from me, Dr. Paiji.
Again, Achalaji, I have to say this was very eye-opening for me as well. Knowing about the Tritiya Tithi, and some of the key points that I could absorb from this discussion is on the association that you showed with Mars and with Parashuram. That's a very important thing. Even when you go there to the direction, you see it's a southeast direction that it is connected to. Southeast is also the you see the connection with Venus. And Parashuram is an avatar amongst the Dasha avatars who's connected very strongly with the Venusian energies as well. As you said, rightfully, it can be aggressive sometimes. And he was key in eliminating all the Kshatriyas from this land. And one of the key divine qualities that you see with this nakshatra and the nature is called as Jaya, which means victory. Okay, with Tritiya. And in Muhurta Chintamani and in Puru Kalamrita, I see that this Tithi is also associated with Gauri.
Yes.
Gauri means the most fairest, complexion one, the whitish complexion like the moon, And here again, you see you're connecting it with all the four padas of Rohini. And one more key thing for me, a takeaway from this discussion, is the divine quality of forgiveness that you're talking about. Because that was the only thing that Lord Sri Ram left in Lord Parashuram. Whenever he broke the Pinaka, the bow of Shiva, that's when Parashuram came raging inside. Janaka is the king Janaka's kingdom, saying that who is the guy who had broken this, because he was so furious. And whenever he sees Ram just absorbs everything, all his ego, his arrogance, his pride, everything. He just absorbs everything into his, and then that's when Lord Parashuram really understands that he's just another incarnation of Vishnu. And Lord Sri Ram just leaves him with only one trait in him, which is called Pashatap. Pashatap means repentance and trying to forgive, whatever he has done. Because until then, there was no repentance which was there in him about, cleansing. And I think this Tritiya is again very strongly showing, as you said, Nitya Klina. She is also connected to, as you said, tears, sweat, and the highest form of sexual energy as well, the feminine energy. So that's, again, I see that's very strong connection also with Kartikeya, as you mentioned. That's beautifully you mentioned about Kartikeya sitting in between, Shiva and Parvati, and he's kind of bringing, those two forces together. Even if you look at Rohini Nakshatra, Rohini sits in the middle, and on one side you have Kritika Nakshatra, which is ruled by Agni Dev, and the other side you have Mragashira Nakshatra, which is ruled by Soma. So you need fire and water, and in between fire and water is the most fertile part, which is Rohini. So you need both, water as well as fire to create, procreate, and also to help anything to flourish. So I see that there is a very strong connection that I can see with, this with Rohini very strongly. And it's been beautifully put, I think. This information is so great that we are learning about, the Tithis from you. And I think your interpretations are also very, very articulate and very in-depth, I would say. So thank you very much, Achalaji, again, for another lovely discussion on, this Tithis, on the series of Tithis that we're doing together. So thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paiji. Namaste.
Namaste.